Welcome to UCLA Next, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Gina Elise. Tonight, we're going to be digging through the gold and the dirt of the Sunset Strip, guiding you from the days of yesteryear to the hotspots of tonight. One of LA's greatest attractions, the Sunset Strip is hard to miss, but like any other street in the world, the Sunset Strip has its share of dirt beneath the surface.
Although the Sunset Strip may not have always been known for its exclusive nightclubs and flashy billboards, there's no doubt that through the decades, the Strip has slowly developed its reputation into one of the leading hotspots for nighttime entertainment and weekend fun. One of the original founders of the city of West Hollywood and former president of its Chamber of Commerce, Tony Melia.
At the turn of the century, the streets were still dirt roads, and as a matter of fact, Sunset Boulevard at that time, I believe, was called Telegraph Road because that was the road that serviced the telegraph from Hollywood to the ocean, Santa Monica and the like. But at that time, Sunset Strip was still very, very popular, and there were a lot of celebrities, and it was a mecca for tourists to come and dine and sort of look for stars.
Former captain of the West Hollywood Sheriff's Station, Richard Odenthal.
The Strip is about 1.6 miles long, and it is the world-famous Sunset Strip, and a lot of people, while they associate it with Hollywood, it is entirely within the city of West Hollywood. It does have a long history. It's back through the 30s and 40s that I know of, that, you know, when I was a kid, like I said, in the 50s, the radio programs, a lot of them were centered on the Sunset Strip.
At the turn of the century, a lot of the buildings were built on kind of speculation, on the off chance that people would come here from the better recognized Hollywood, which was never a city but a portion of Los Angeles, and a lot of celebrities that lived in the Beverly Hills and what is now Bel Air area. People in those days, and when I first came here because it was a safe place. Also, a lot of agents and movie people came here because the taxes were less than they were in Beverly Hills or in Santa Monica. And not only were you free of a lot of rules and regulations made by Los Angeles City and Beverly Hills, but you were in fact you paid less taxes and had a freedom of lifestyle.
Alec Lyatnikoff, director of the Argyle Hotel.
The Argyle Hotel was actually built as the Sunset Towers in 1929. The idea behind the building was that the studios didn't have one place that was really nice to house all their A talent. So they came up with the idea saying, okay, well, what if we have, you know, a very modern building that can offer the amenities, say, to what New York was able to offer. So RKO, Paramount Pictures, 20th Century Fox, Warner Brothers, and some of the other smaller independent studios got together and they started construction. It was designed by Leland Brandt, and this building in LA was one of the most modern buildings. So instead of having them stay at the cabanas and the bungalows at the studios, they would actually get to have their own apartment here. And of course it was convenient. Warner Brothers is just down the street from us. Paramount is over on Melrose. You have Warner Brothers, the other up and over the hill. 20th Century Fox, of course, was what is now most of Century City, but at that time they actually had a much bigger area that they controlled. So if you were like an A player like John Wayne, Greta Garbo, Betty Davis, Joan Crawford, you got to stay here. And sometimes it was for a month, sometimes it was for 6, 7, 8, 9 months. It's definitely the place to be. Because you can, I mean, if you want to like be in the middle of everything, just because everyone's out on Sunset, you've got the paparazzi, you have celebrities, you have people just walking around, hanging out. I mean, you can get anything you want to eat, drink, shop. It's all right here.
Prior to that, legend has it that there were speakeasies during the Prohibition era, gambling perhaps in basements below the entertainment. So it's always been an entertainment destination.
I think that wherever there's gambling and prostitution, and certainly in the 20s when there were, you know, the Prohibition, and there were speakeasies, that there isn't any guess that anybody's wonderment that in fact the mob came along to muscle in and take their portion of the funds. Whether that is speakeasies or hot nightclubs or gambling or whatever, it's always been that kind of a mecca, more than any other place in Los Angeles.
Nick Adler, owner and manager of the Roxy nightclub.
The building itself, I believe in the early 1920s they built it, and it was a produce market, and there has a little mob ties. I don't really know, and I really haven't researched it, but there has been some ties that back then that they used it for something to do with, I don't know if it was laundering money or a place their hangout, but they had a full market downstairs open to the street, and they would have produce right on the street, so you come in pretty much like an open market. And then these were residences up here, and people lived up here. And then I would say in the early 50s, Chuck Landis bought it, and he made it the Largo, which was a strip club.
Since it has become part of the city in the early 80s, it really has a much better reputation, and the clubs are much more upscale. There's a place called Gazzari's, which was one of the most popular discos in all of West Coast, actually. Back in those years, you didn't have sidewalk cafes per se, and now the Sunset Strip has some enormously popular sidewalk cafes that have really brought the Strip into its own as far as a different look. Back then, they were not sidewalk cafes. They were nightclubs or supper clubs, and I don't think anywhere on the Strip today there's a supper club as we knew supper clubs back in those years. And at that time, if you look back in history and look at other areas, no place has had that kind of a trend. Even Hollywood Boulevard and that area of Los Angeles known as Hollywood, probably because of its proximity to Bel Air and Beverly Hills, and the fact that many of the movie studios were on the west side, or on the east side, and it just became the place where you dropped in for a drink on your way home from the studio, or you went out at night or on weekends, and the headliners from Ella Fitzgerald to Dinah Washington to Sinatra, Bing Crosby, whatever.
So it has that kind of romantic draw throughout the generations. I think what happens now is the venues there provide a safe environment for people to come for entertainment. They do, in fact, draw both up-and-coming and established entertainers. So we have a broad base. When you're talking about a clientele that may span 50 years, that's a lot of people.
Now that we've cruised through the history of the Sunset Strip, let's check out what's happening today. Where would you want to eat? What clubs are your style? We'll let you choose for yourself with our guided tour of all the happening spots on the Sunset Strip. Now that we've cruised through the history of the Sunset Strip, let's check out what's happening today. Where would you want to eat? What clubs are your style? We'll let you choose for yourself with our guided tour of all the happening spots on the Sunset Strip.
Here we go!
This is probably one of the most famous entertainment roads in the world. Right along the Strip, not only do we have the Comedy Store, but the Roxy, which is as famous a club as comes, the Whiskey A Go-Go, which, the Doors were the house band at, Van Halen was the house band at. There's just more famous bands came out of that. This whole area here in West Hollywood along the Strip is about entertainment.
It's like Bourbon Street, Times Square, Las Vegas, but of rock and roll.
The biggest B-scene celebrity spot in here is right across the street. This House of Blues right across the street is one of the best House of Blues in the United States.
House of Blues has been open now for approximately 10 years here in Los Angeles. It's just the epicenter of what people consider to be the cool part of Los Angeles. You get a very diverse crowd coming in. On any given night, you could have a total celebrity-filled crowd, or you could have a crowd that was nothing but 17-year-old punk rock kids. A couple of weeks ago, we had the West Side Connection with Mac 10 and Ice Cube and Dub C. We had Echo and the Bunnymen here on Monday night. Did Justin Timberlake's show after his show at the Staples Center with Christina. Let's see. Next week we have Obi Trice, a hot up-and-coming hip-hop star. But honestly, every night I go home and pretty much say, that was the best show. That was the show of the year. I say show of the year, 3-4 times a week. And House of Blues, it's just one of those venues that just anchors the street. We're very lucky. We got some other great venues on the street. The Whiskey and the Roxy are both legendary places.
From the legend of back in the day when Neil Young played here, or Bob Marley, or AC/DC, or Cheap Trick, it was just these great bands had played here, so this is the place to play. We've had many generations of bands come through here in a short, in only 30 years. But from the greats to the ones that are going to be great in like 5 years. We still know that our best show is a rock and roll show, and people are going to drink beer and have a good time, and top-down girls in leather and rock and roll blaring out of the Roxy, and drunk people at the Rainbow, and bands trying to make it, really is what it is. And that's really the ones that we look forward to here.
It's time to take control again. I'll be the only one. It's time to take control again. I'll be the only one. 'Cause I just wanna play with myself, and I don't need anyone else.
Well, an average night is about 500 people clawing at me, asking me for every drink from a Long Island iced tea to a mojito.
We do everything here. Everybody from Sarah McLachlan to Van Halen to Ice Cube to, any kind of artist you'd want to see.
Last one I served was Gene Simmons, also Ricky Martin. Let me see, Sarah McLachlan. President Bill Clinton was here like 3 years ago, and that was a lot of fun.
The Standard is a hotel which everybody can go with a sense of style, and that doesn't necessarily have immediately a lot of money to spend. So it appeals to a young clientele who loves design, who loves arts, and that's who we are. We are anything but standard. That's what the name is all about, huh? And that's why when in hotel industry, we always want to have some standards. The same room, the same type of items, and what we wanted to create is with the most boring name, Standard, which is upside down, which says it all. It's anything but standard. We have different nights, different crowds come in. So Wednesday night is kind of the Hollywood night. Thursday night is a gay night, since we're in West Hollywood. It's very successful also, and we have different people, different nights. On Monday night at some point we had kind of a Latino night. And I think it's different crowd, and they come here, and we try, we're not about with attitude. It's open every night, 10 to 2. And I think it's, the feeling of the room is very sexy, it's very sensual, it's very soothing, and we really enjoy when girls jump on those cubes.
The Petit Four has been created in 1981, and it was a little store with only pastry, and there was no table available outside, and it became a restaurant in 89. What I love the most in our restaurant, it's the diversity of the customer, age and different style, which I love really much because for me it's really Los Angeles.
There's so many different cultures that come to this restaurant, being that it's French. We have a large French clientele and just all countries from all over Europe, and also a lot of celebrities come.
Well, the Comedy Store has been open since 1972. It's the Comics Comedy Club. True comedy comes from finding your voice and then what stems from that. And that's why the Comedy Store is unique. This is the only comedy club in the country where, like David Letterman, some kid can show up in his truck and develop, find his own voice, be the way he wants to be, and then find the work out of it. That's why there's all the names around here. Actually, in one night here, Chris Tucker pulled up and did a set. Chris Rock came in and did a set. Andrew Dice Clay came in and did a set, okay? And then Eddie Griffin stopped by and did a set. The Comedy Store is haunted. They've had paranormal psychologists in here and everything. There's a feeling. We're not sure what it is. We're not sure if it's specific entities that are here. The rumor is there were people sometimes that came in here for a show and never left.
Sunset Boulevard is one of the busiest streets in LA, with thousands of pedestrians and cars filling the strip each night. Up next, we'll find out what it takes to keep the strip under control. Since its early beginnings, Sunset Boulevard has been a haven for illegal activities such as gambling and prostitution. Now, a century later, the strip has cleaned up its act.
Every weekend, thousands of individuals venture out onto the Sunset Strip for its hip hangouts and busy nighttime scene. But all too often, these partygoers are oblivious to what takes place outside their trendy nightclubs and rowdy bars. From the hundreds of law enforcement officials monitoring everything from prostitution, traffic violations, to local transients, the Sunset Strip definitely has another side that many don't often take the time to notice.
When I came here in 1995, the Strip was not a particularly popular destination. In late 95, as the House of Blues gained popularity and some of the other clubs began to change their types of entertainment, we saw a resurgence in the popularity of the Strip. We estimate on a Friday evening, we could have as many as 70 to 100,000 people on the Strip. We had several major crowd control incidents on the Sunset Strip where deputies were sent in here to restore order and maintain order.
People were literally throwing things out, windows, balconies, and traffic on Sunset came to a standstill. People actually got out of their cars, and the sheriff's department ended up coming out. And they were like with their mics, please get back in your cars, get back. And they actually turned off the street lights on Sunset.
It's controlled mayhem up there. The fact that people being drunk on the street, that's an every night occurrence up there. The public intoxication, the urinating in public, people go down to their streets and do that. There's narcotics being sold up there. It's like a mini Las Vegas. It doesn't stop. 4 o'clock in the morning, there's still people walking around. Our goal is to make sure that they're either with somebody that can take care of them, or if they're not, then we have to step in and take them to jail. People when they drink sometimes get either really violent or really mellow.
People doing things like, we've gone in the dressing room and there's like a lamb's leg in the sink, or there's like weird blood paint, or just people doing things where you're just like, who's going to enjoy that? Why is there a cow's leg in the sink, or and them wanting to bring it on stage, or just being a little out of control.
Fights inside of one of the clubs, and basically they're all pretty much alcohol related. Some of them are girl related, some of them are guy related. So it's kind of like hormones going off in both directions. It's not worth getting involved in a fight with a drunk. Stand back. And we can use the less than lethal forms of force, pepper spray, etc. that calms the situation before we have to get hands on. We've had to use force sometimes where deputies get in wrestling matches with people, and sometimes they get hurt.
While the Strip may attract many from the Hollywood elite with its popular bars and nightclubs, all too often, it's easy to forget about the illegal activities each night that draw the same patrons into the shadows of Sunset Boulevard.
We've had a few incidents, but by and large, the Strip has been and remains a safe place to go. There is some drug trafficking that happens up there, and as it comes to the attention of law enforcement, we deal with it. There are some arrests made, but if you've been on the Strip, you'll see that there aren't a lot of drugged out individuals that are wandering the streets up there or approaching people on the street. The issues surrounding the transient population on the Sunset Strip, while there are some transients that are there, generally speaking, they're off. They don't frequent the Strip because there's not much for them, not much benefit dealing with transients. Prostitution on the Sunset Strip, there's a low incidence of prostitution. I would never say there isn't any, but it is of negligible impact.
Prostitution was not a big thing. There was a lot of streetwalkers up on Sunset. There may be some alcohol places that are working out of condominiums, but that's not really the complaints that we're getting anywhere near Sunset. A lot of residents that live close to the Strip complain about the noise. But as far as the problems up there, we focus on the noise. A lot of people come up there and cruise. They cruise with their loud car stereos. And what we try to do is, we make a presence, we write citations for that. We try to explain to them why we're doing it. We're not picking on any particular music, but we have a transitory gang problem because of Sunset Strip.
Y'all gonna do a arrest me? Is y'all working with the police? Because, if it wasn't for the media, man, most of this rap shit wouldn't be going on. I'm a music artist, and I just would like to say, I kill people for a living. Yeah, but I don't give a f*** the media. That's what I got to say.
The fact that they want to come up there, see the girls.
Like a girl right there, like, let me see the mask.
They know it's a place to be seen, so they come up there.
Check it though on the real. It's Young Sebastian, the pussy smasher. So check it out, this that UCLA shit right here. So all the ladies that's digging me, my email number
really
is
want to do the
craftycat 6x10 at AOL, Yahoo, or some shit like that. Yeah.
And so there's a major chance that there's people up there with guns. Usually we'll get information that from a passerby that says, "Oh, this car showed a gun to us." That's some of the things we try to counteract with our presence.
It's not an oppressive presence. The deputies work a variety of assignments, including motorcycles, cars, and footbeats. But it's not an oppressive presence.
But because of our presence up there, everybody knows that we're out there, proactive. There's a lot of us every Friday night and Saturday night. We're there to make sure everybody that comes up there has a good time. But if you come up there and you break the law, you're going to be dealt with. You're going to go to jail. You're going to get a ticket. It's a small area, but it's so populated that we have to show that presence up there.
I don't believe so. I think we police this actually with a minimal number of police officers, but it's not an oppressive presence.
Law-abiding visitors to the Sunset Strip shouldn't feel intimidated by its strong police presence. However, one of the more common violations to watch out for are keeping in line with its stringent parking restrictions that provide thousands of dollars in revenue every weekend.
We have interesting parking restrictions, and you can't stop when you read the first parking advisement because there may be 2 or 3 things in there.
Well, I can say on a Friday and a Saturday night, we average about 75 sites a night written up there, just basically between a 6-hour period, between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. And that averages, for a month, that's 140 times 4, that's almost 640, 560 sites a month just for Sunset. So I think that's a major priority, that we not only use it just, we don't want to say it's for revenue, we use it to control the situation up there, and let our presence felt up there. We're not here to deter anybody, even though our presence is pretty big on weekend nights. We're up there to make sure you, the ones that come up here, have a good time.
Here we go! Hey girls, hey boys, superstar DJs. Here we go! Hey girls, hey boys, superstar DJs. Here we go!
And so we finish our tour of the wild and restless Sunset Strip and conclude our visit to the street's glamorous and grotesque past. The truth is out and the guns are on the table. You are now part of a history of a strip whose stunning past is shared by the world's greatest celebrities and meanest criminals alike. By day, may these structures stand in testimony to the great history of one of the world's most famous streets. By night, may the stars continue to shine on the enduring legend of the Sunset Strip.